So video game movies haven't historically been all that great. They've mostly ranged from terrible to eh. However, in recent years that trend seems to have started to turn a bit. Because the Angry Birds movie worked. It wasn't great, but it worked. Warcraft was a bit messy, but I couldn't call it terrible either. It had its moments. And the recent Pikachu movie was actually pretty decent. It wasn't great either, but it was decent. So we're heading in the right direction, and maybe one day we will have a truly great video game movie. And I've actually seen someone on the YouTubes make the claim that this is the one. That this is the first great video game movie, so of course I had to check it out. Even though I honestly had very little interest in it because Sonic is just not a franchise I'm very familiar with. In fact, I think I've played a Sonic game once in my life at my cousin's house 25 years ago. So I had basically no emotional attachment to this going into it, and based on the trailer it just looked kinda meh. Also, it's the debut film by Jeff Fowler, and if you look up the writers, their resume doesn't exactly instill a lot of confidence, so my expectations weren't that high for this. But I decided to let the movie speak for itself, and maybe it would end up proving me wrong. Well, did it? Sort of, but not really. I think it's a solid, decent movie, but definitely not great. And the story here follows Sonic, a blue lightning-fast hedgehog from outer space, who's settled down in the outskirts of this small town in Montana where he tries to keep to himself so as not to draw attention to himself. Of course that doesn't work out and he attracts the focus of the villain of the movie, played by Jim Carrey. And things sorta go from there. Essentially Sonic, with the help of his friendly neighborhood cop buddy, played by James Marsden, have to find a way to slip away from this evil supervillain that's chasing them. And that's more or less the movie. It's super straightforward and there's not that much depth or complexity to it. But you know what? It works. The story works, and unlike a lot of video game movies, at least this one is not messy. You know exactly what's going on and what the motivations of the characters are. And everything is just made super clear and it stays focused and doesn't veer off into a million different storylines. In fact, there's really only two storylines here, Sonic and his cop buddy. And both of those are intertwined and their arcs pretty much unfold simultaneously. It's actually a very neat and clean script, and I think they did a very good job with it. The direction and the editing is also not fussy or messy, and this thing keeps itself focused on what matters. I will also say that it's a fairly amusing movie. It kept me smiling for most of the runtime. Now, a lot of the comedy didn't exactly land with me personally, but it wasn't offensively bad either. And I do get the impression that this might be aimed at a slightly younger audience. And I wouldn't be surprised if kids actually found this to be great, because it's very inoffensive but still entertaining. And you know what else? At times this even managed to be genuinely sweet too. With that being said, I do have to admit that I didn't love Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic here. I've liked him in several things before and even thought he did a great job recently in Standing Up, Falling Down. But here his performance is very flat, very monotone and not nearly as expressive as I think it should have been. So that was a bit of a letdown, but at the same time it wasn't awful either, it wasn't distractingly bad. And James Marsden on the other hand was great, as was Adam Pally, who had a small role in this. But apart from those, no one really stood out to me, and Jim Carrey just did his usual Jim Carrey thing. And yeah, that's about it, but the question remains, would I recommend this? I mean, I wouldn't not recommend it, it's perfectly fine and watchable. But it's also not really a must-see, so I don't know. Maybe give it a look, maybe don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you'd like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.